Hi, I'm Donald L. Marino, author of Return of the Shadows, Book 1, The Chosen, Book 2, Under Attack, and Book 3, The Final Stand. And you can find them at Barnes& and Nobles. You can find them online at my website, donaldlmarino.com. There are links there for them. And on Amazon. So Return of the Shadows, the story takes place, the balance of good and evil has tipped in favor of the goddess Hel. So she has shadow creatures she releases onto the earth. They can possess weak-minded creatures, and they particularly like the trolls. So she amasses a troll army to go after the four races: the humans, dwarves, elves, and hawk people. They have to work with her sister goddess, the goddess Adhd, to restore the balance of good and evil by using the four elements before the goddess Hel destroys them. Writing is what writing does for me is very relaxing. It takes me to another place and gets me away from the everyday problems that everybody has. It's just a nice escape, a getaway. Well, when I was a kid, my mom used to watch the soap operas, and the one she always watched Days of Our Lives in Another World, and Felicia Gallant was on Another World, and she was a writer. She wrote romance novels, and I always thought it was really cool. And I remember thinking back then, like, I'd like to do that. I have ADHD. Most places, most of the time when you talk to people who write or who are giving advice for writing, they tell you find a nice quiet place, no distractions, so that you can think. My brain doesn't function that way, so I need a lot of things going on around me. I write best when I'm sitting at the kitchen table, my husband is there, the kids are here, he's talking to them, there's things going on around. That's when I write my best, when I have a lot of things going on around me, because my brain functions better that way. So my idea for the books actually started at work. I grabbed the back placemat, started jotting ideas down on the back of a placemat, and it kind of grew from there. I didn't have a clear picture of where it was going or exactly what I was doing. I knew I was going to have the four races and the four elements involved from the beginning, and the characters just kind of developed over time, and then in the rewrites, the characters developed even more. So yeah, it just kind of formulated in my head, percolated. I tell everyone, like, when I'm writing, I'll think about whatever I'm writing, like what I want to happen in the next chapter. The original novel was one big book, and I had sent that out to traditional publishers and got no response. I had contacted one of the traditional publishers, and they said, "Listen, unless we ask for it, if someone sends something in unsolicited, it just goes in the trash." So I was like, okay. So I had started looking at other options for publishing, and when I did that, I also looked at rewriting again the book for, I think it was like the fourth or fifth time, because there were some characters that I really liked. I wanted to bring them in earlier. I felt I knew the characters more now, that I could give them more feeling. So I did the rewrite, and I decided, because it was a fantasy series, I should break it into three books. Just most fantasy books are a trilogy. I also felt like, being a brand new author, someone might grab a smaller book to try me out first rather than a big thick novel. So from a marketing perspective, I thought maybe it would work better that way. Some of the obstacles I faced with writing and rewriting the book is, finding time, because everyone has a job. You got to pay the bills somehow. So I do work a lot, so that was an obstacle. And that was probably the biggest obstacle, actually. I'm very fortunate. Once I start going on an idea and going down that road, it seems to come pretty quickly to me. Probably my other biggest obstacle is the fact that I'm terrible at English and spelling and grammar. I'm not good at it. So thank God I have Word that picks up most of my errors. Um, but other than that, I have to go back through and carefully read because I know what it's supposed to say. And if the first and last letters are right, I'm usually pretty good. So it's hard for me to pick up on those errors. The character development, some of the favorite characters I have in this series, um, there was one character named Rosemary, and when I had introduced her, she actually originally came in much later in the book. Uh, and for those who are around my age, they probably remember Little House on the Prairie. It was a TV show. There was a lady on there, Mrs. Olson, who kind of thought she was better than everyone else. And Rosemary is kind of like Mrs. Olson on steroids. She's a fun character. And I ended up bringing her, when I did a rewrite, I brought her in much earlier and did a lot more with her because she was such a rich character and fun to write. Some of the other characters that were fun are the one main character. He's a hawk person. Lore was interesting to write just because of everything that happened to him. Some of them, like, as I'm writing, I'm like, wow, I feel kind of bad for doing this to him. But he was a very interesting character to write too. I would tell people, it can get very, very frustrating at times, and you feel like you're getting nowhere, but just don't give up. Don't let a lot of negativity sit in around. There are certain people that I just don't talk about my book to, or my writing to, because they're very negative people, and I don't want that negative energy around my writing. It's, balancing the writing and the job is that's going to be different for everyone because it depends on your job and what time you work, how many hours you work. Right now, I work a lot of hours. So a lot of times I'll get home at 9 o'clock at night and I'll sit down and just, pound out part of a chapter or get the idea of the chapter I'm going with. And then the next day at work while I'm working, I'm, formulating in my mind like how that chapter is going to go. Um, but again, it depends on the job you do. I'm fortunate in my job that I'm not using heavy machinery or anything where, I can daydream a little bit and think, and I'm okay. So, uh, Mary Jean, MJ, is my biggest fan. I'm fortunate enough to work at a diner where the owner is extremely supportive of my writing. Mary Jean happens to be one of the waitresses there. And she's usually there with a cup of coffee in the morning going, "Do you have a chapter for me?" So she's the one that kept me going through when I was writing Return of the Shadows because she was always looking for the next chapter. She loves the book. She loves the series. And if you get her started talking, I hope you have some free time because she goes for a while. So I credit her a lot, and I tell her all the time, if it wasn't for her, the book probably wouldn't have gotten finished because, again, I have ADHD. So, a lot of times I start something and then I'm like, ooh, shiny, and I'm off to the next thing. So she really helped keep me focused when I was writing this series and kept me excited about it because she was always so excited about it. Well, I'm working on the next series of Return of the Shadows, which will be book 4, 5, and 6. It takes place about 70 years after this series ends, and the goddess Hell is up to her shenanigans again. She thinks she's found a loophole where she's going to be able to create havoc for the 4 races. And so they have to figure out how to stop her from using this loophole. And there are some of the old characters are back, some of the favorites. There's going to be a lot of new characters. There's going to be new creatures because they kind of have to go outside the island that they have been living on for almost 1,000 years, and so they will run into some interesting creatures along the way, make some new friends along the way. I am also working on a book called Carl's Journey. I'm fortunate enough to have some friends who we've been doing writing shorts, short stories, and I've taken one of their short stories and I'm turning it into a book. So it's a very interesting book about a young man who is coming out of the closet and how he deals with his feelings about that, and the feelings of those around him. Um, it's a real fun read. So, and again, MJ is there in the morning. Where's the next chapter? So, and she really likes this book too. I'm working on a couple other things. There's a story about the Ringtown Witch, which is actually a historic event that happened not far from where I live. And so I'm doing a historical fiction on that. I'm also taking a bunch of the short stories that I've been writing uh, with my friends, and I'm going to be making a book of short stories. Um, and then, besides the writing, uh, I don't know when I find time for everything, but besides the writing, we have Authors in the Park, which is a program that I put together that we're doing here in town, where a bunch of local authors are getting together and inviting the public in to see their work and talk to them. And so there's a lot going on.